Boom, boom, boom. Finger guns. We're live. Bang, bang, bang. How's it going? How's it going? How's everybody doing? Boop, 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 boop. What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? Watchlist time, baby. So, back with another watch list. Fairly busy on my end. I basically traded all of those multi-day runners that were on the watch list from yesterday. I'll start with Run, just because this one was the one this was the one I had overnight, so I figured I would start here. But I had an entry up here in like 1240-ish area, and we got the gap down. And I stopped out of some once it went green, and then I stopped out of some just under my average, not looking to give back the entire gain, so I locked in a small portion, and then it exhausted into these 950s, and then we get this failed fall through level here at 1230 over under, so I re-lean, cover into VWAP, it stays heavy, re-short verse VWAP as a guide, cover towards lows a day. We get a quick flush, so I short, and it continues to stay continues to stay firm, so I moved on, but really minimized this trade altogether, considering I was up about buck a share in the overnight gap, and then to give it back, and then kind of battled my way back a little bit on that little failed fall through setup. So didn't play out the way I would have expected. Not the daily candle I expected, where you get the flat open gap down and completely rips all the way back. So unfortunate, but is what it is. FSLR, I traded this one as well. Was green on this name. Not a crazy sizable trade, but it was. I was there. So I'm trying to get yesterday's range without screwing up today's chart. But you can get an idea. So it had that morning spike and then chopped around the rest of the day. So coming into today, we got a gap down. So I shorted it right before the open, because it was red for the first time in how many days? 1, 2, 3, 4. Today was the 5th day. Felt like that was enough of a trend change. Shorted it with wide enough risk off of prior day's highs, which is typically the widest risk level I will give on these overextension mean reversion trades. So with that short, had wide risk, and was hoping it would set a low a day sometime below that once we get an opening range breakdown, I could size in and use a different risk level. And it broke through, ultimately stuffing and not going any higher. But same setup where you get hard crack, lower highs, failed fall through under the prior day's highs, really, was the failed fall through level. So I reshorted, added, covered into the low a day wash, tried to reshort once it wasn't bouncing, and it did end up holding, so I moved on and was a decent cover. But given I took a full-size loss here on this trade, I did make it back, ended up green on it with these ones, with the scales. But again, wasn't really anything to write home about. ARRY, I was green on this one, but again, nothing really major. Let it push, hard crack, lower high, reshort under prior bar lows. We get this flush. I'm thinking that's the start of this trend fail. So I short pops, and we get a snap back and higher low, so I size down. Very small winner. Just giving back most of that with that snap back. MVST was red, the only red trade of the day, but we had right here, chop, high a day clear out. So I'm thinking this is the stuff candle, and then it swipes me right through, so I end up covering through highs that ultimately pulls, but continued higher, and it did end up failing. I think this was probably the entry right through here, but risk reward was just kind of shot around there. I wasn't looking to give it multiple attempts. So those were the trades from today, and Not really. It was kind of a nothing day. Everything was small green, kept the losses small in MVST, and everything else was just small green, given that I took losses before and then basically just making them back. So it is what it is. Yeah, Timmy, NXTT was straight from the watch list. Could have gotten pretty decent risk reward there, where you get the opening range set right here in the 270s. Once that fails, triggers that 250, 260 break, panic, lower high, and completely unwound. That was that 250 breakdown here, looking left. But nice fade. Still trading like 5.5, 6 million shares. So it's still a candidate for a mean revert bounce. I don't know what the range is going to be like given all the bag holders, but we're coming into some prior support and resistance levels from day one, and it's starting to consolidate here. So I don't know if we could get back to that 350-ish maybe. But I kind of have the feeling that these little failed bounces put too many bag holders in the backside. It's going to be a bit harder to bounce, so don't love the idea. But was short from the previous day at 313. Nice. I think I was short that yesterday, wasn't I? Or maybe not. I can't remember. I remember trading this thing. I can't remember what I did with this thing. But give it a 313 average. I imagine you get this parabolic, hard crack, lower high. This is a decent entry spot. Risking 320. That's aggressive. That's aggressive. But nice trade. Congrats. Congrats. I think that 320 risk is a bit tight. I think that you have the chance of getting stopped on something like that with a 320 stop. Getting like a 3 teens entry, I think the tightest you could have is like a 340, 350 stop. Prior bounce highs. But I mean, it worked, so you traded it better than me. What else do we have? I set some price alerts on some of those other runners that are just kind of fizzling out, and I'm tired of keeping them on like wasted screen space. So I set some price alerts here at like 60 cents. What was some other ones like Zkin? I set some here at like $4. There's a bunch of them, but all these recent runners, I just set some price alerts. Volume has disappeared. They're so far off their highs that they're not within shooting distance of breakouts anymore. So set some price alerts and not have to pay attention to them. Tesla, this thing keeps going wild. Crazy. Every week open gets absorbed. The CTMX has got these wicks on the daily. I'm wondering if there's a buyer in there where you can kind of draw a line connecting them. This thing's starting to where it flushes out, bought up, flushes out, bought up, flushes out, bought up, and it just keeps doing it like along this little trend there. Yeah, could be something worth watching. Pony, I think this is, in terms of price range, it's different, but I think it's the same setup as NXTT, where you get the confirmed backside move, but sets like a multi-day base. This one here in the mid twos, and for Pony's sake is at like 1660, 1640, I guess. I thought it was 60, but 1640 the last 2 days. And it goes all the way back here to like front side of the breakout, and then now we've double bottomed here. So if this takes out 1640, I think this one gets hit into this little liquidity pocket here from 16 down to 14. So I definitely like this one. As I've mentioned multiple times, we've gone over the time frame in which these backside faders have taken place has expanded. So like if you're shorting a first red day on NXTT, you need to give it some time. ASST was the same thing. If you're shorting this first red day, you got to give it some time, and then it fades. So I think we're in that kind of situation here with Pony. If 1640s fails, give it some time, and I think could get hit. ASST, I'd need lower, further away from like this $6 the better. So ideally, maybe we get like a gap fill sub 4, and then look for a bounce trade. But for now, it's just continuing to fade off. I don't really love this for a bounce. Run, I don't really have much of a plan on it at this point. We've got the push, we've got the little reset, and now it's just chopping. And it's not like a typical first red day. This is an earnings winner. I said I'd give it one try, which was this 1250 failed fall through. And now that it's come and gone, not super interested there. MVST, same kind of thing. We've had that parabolic and reset. Now it's starting to hold and build over prior resistance, 290s plus, so looks like it's still in an uptrend. FSLR, I think this one is the leader with run in terms of that sector for solar. But if the markets were to have a reset day and have a nice red day instead of each week open getting bought up, if we were to actually stay heavy, I think this one could get hit, but we've definitely got this key level here in this 184, 185 range. So this would probably be a vehicle I could choose in terms of a market basket. NVIDIA would be another one I'd keep on watch. It's starting to speed up a little bit. If the market gets hit, this one could start to pull back. Have you guys seen UNH again? This thing got smoked in after hours with a Department of Justice probe into the company looking at fraud allegations and stuff, and just got smoked. I see a bunch of people looking to mean revert long this thing. It's not typically a setup I trade with these large caps and bad news hitting it, but I will keep it on watch to learn from, because there's some good traders looking to bounce that, so worth keeping it on watch. Timmy mentioned Cheapy's gone wild. IXHL was the biggie today. And Nate was long this thing. He had entries sub 10 cents in like the 9s. He obviously scaled into it through here, so his average wasn't in the 9 cents, but he was so early that he started second guessing himself all through here, like the 20s and 40s. But we had a joke going back and forth. We're just like F and Dawson every time this thing would go higher, because we were talking about it in pre-market together, and I didn't do anything to make him sell. He was just messing with me. It was funny. But monster move. Hit 120s in after hours. Over 1,000% move and over a billion shares. So those typically gap. I don't really know what I want to do with it tomorrow. I want to lean towards a 70% plus gap would be a gap short fade. It hasn't really run for multiple days, but it also hasn't traded this kind of volume, so we're kind of in new territory. But if we're gapping 70% plus, you get that gap up parabolic, I think I'd be kind of forced to want to trade it. It was on Reg Show today, which isn't the greatest when you're trying sub $1 names, because then I'm kind of forced into a box of patience trading. And with these cheapy names, I'm typically not wanting to be super patient on them when they're trading a billion shares. But I also don't want to borrow them a million times, because I'd be burning commissions on sub $1 names. So I don't know. We'll see. It's not like an A+ trade, so. QBTS, however, I think is setting up pretty decent in terms of like A-grade breakouts. It's a quantum name. It's held up better than the rest of the entire basket. Qubit, RGTI, What was the other one? QUBC? Was it Q? What was it? Qubit, RGTI, you had QSI, you had QMCO, but a bunch of them. And you can see all the dailies look similar, and QBTS is clearly the standout. And then they just put out earnings here a few days ago, I think. I can double check, but I think it was earnings. Let me look. Yeah, earnings. Okay. On the 8th in pre-market, which was that day. I do remember, however, it did gap up, completely retrace its whole move, and then bounced and ripped all the way back. Because I was watching it that day, where you get that little morning pop into pre-market levels, retraces the entire move, and then just steady grind, not letting shorts out the rest of the day. Smoked them. And since then, has held higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, and has topped out at looking left levels and put in some tightening inside days. So this 1150s, 1160s break here where it's topped out the last few times is definitely a key spot where it pops, fails, pops, fails, pops, fails, pops, fails. So see if this can build 1160s plus, and I think this is a damn good looking breakout, especially powered by earnings and some relative strength in a sector. Let's see what IO and Q is looking like. Not much. So, in terms of main watches, tomorrow is probably QBTS and Pony, probably top two, and then IXHL as the back burner watch. Probably two main watches. Golan late again. Don't you got like doesn't it push through? Like if you're subscribed, doesn't going live send a notification? I think it does. I don't know. Golan's in time just for me to close it out. Crack my back. What's up, Jeff? Bass Hunter. It used to, but something went lately and I get no notification. Huh. So many YouTube notifications, I hear ya. Fair enough. Well, I mean, I'm the most important notification you got, right? So let's just delete all the other ones and just have this one. Objectively speaking, of course. That's an unbiased opinion. Want to see Newton keep running. Yeah, there's a little breakout there. 1 day of volume. EVGO, I thought about putting on watch as well. This thing just doesn't really move. But you've got this little breakout here. I think the other one was CISO. Yeah. Where it hasn't really traded much volume since this big pullback. And now it's coming back and retesting through these 140s. But each time it's gone on multi-day runs, it's been so choppy. So I think technical-wise, I think it fits the pattern. But just based on how these few names are trading, I decided not to put them on watch. Because I don't really think they're needle movers. Yeah, same kind of thing with Newton. Little breakout there through 80 cents. If this were to go 2+, yeah, I'd probably watch it. But you can see each time it tries to break out, it just gets stuffed. So not going to hold my breath. But yeah, there was a few of those. Similar dailies, EBGO, Newton, CISO. I saw them on scan, but just don't really care to watch them. What else? What else? What else? Otherwise, we can wrap it up there. It's getting late for the East Coasters, so no sense in dragging it out. Missed the intro. Don't know if you mentioned NXTT backside bounce. Yeah, I talked about it briefly. Why or why not a watch for tomorrow? Yeah, so it's based here right into prior support and resistance from that day one move. We did have this backside breakdown here of this 250, 260 range, and we've had a couple perk attempts into this 350 range that have kind of enticed shorts to cover. Where if this were to have faded, chopped around, faded, chopped around, if this were to have been yesterday and we're not having all these pops already back into resistance, I think I'd be a bit more inclined. Like literally, if I could erase this day, I don't even. Can you do that on here? I don't know. But if you can try and imagine, like if this day wasn't here and you get a frontside move, a day and a half red day because of this bunch of this range was after hours. And then it pulls back for a day, so you get an overextended gap up and crap. And then if you get this, where you get like a flat open and then fizzle, now there's not as many people trapped trying to bounce it like into the close in the morning. So I just feel like it already bagged a few longs trying to bounce again. And then also forming this 250 base, I think that's going to be a bit tough to work through. So just based on the way it faded on the backside, more of a discretionary opinion. I think objectively speaking, you've had a frontside move with plenty of range, and you've had 2 days of backside that haven't closed green. So just looking at the daily chart, I think it fits the bill. But just looking at how it happened, I don't love it. If it sets up like really nice, I'll be kind of forced to take it. Like even this morning, it wasn't super ideal, but like if I get so let's just make like a hypothetical scenario based on how it's trading here. So we got a 280 to 180 move today. So the way I would like this to play out would be probably like an open of like 190, basically like a flat open, a flush sub 180 but hold like 175, and then bounce but not break 190. So now we've got a 190 to 175 range, which is really tight. Maybe a 180, 185 bounce, set that lower high to the open price, a double bottom retest of 175, and then a re-break of that lower high in the 180, 185s, maybe scale through high a day. If I were to get a weak open, lower high, double bottom opening range break, I would trade it. I just don't think it's going to set up that clean. It fits the criteria, multi 100% move, multiple days of fade, dollar volume is still 10, 11 million. So it meets all the requirements. I just wouldn't want to anticipate the bounce based on how it faded because I think there's so many bags. But if I start seeing some bottoming action and seeing some longs come in there, I think I would take it, risk 1R, and just look for a bounce into like 3 to 350 would be the goal. To be honest, if we get like a 180 open or somewhere around there, I'd probably be selling some into 250, 260. It's just there's so much resistance up here. But I don't think it's going to be super clean. I hope it is. And we'll see how it acts, but that'd be like the only scenario that I would trade it, like a flat open or slight gap down, double bottoms, opening range break. It needs to set up perfect if I want to take it. Little details make the difference. That sounds like upside down, fail follow through. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of how Roland trades or used to trade gappers. He called it like a gap and crap reversal, which is basically an inverted failed follow through, and it's like an A plus entry setup for me on like a bigger picture long idea. Like if QBTS were to gap up, set a high a day right at 1160 and do an inverted failed follow through, and then an opening range is through 1150s, that's like an A plus entry signal. I'll take that 9 times out of 10. So hopefully it sets up like that, but we'll see. Yeah, Kidley was just a 1 day failed runner. So again, like the range is there from a 5 day low to 30. And it's been super clean on the backside with just gap down, fade, gap down, fade. So, I mean, I typically don't buy 1 day failed runners. I think this one could work, but discretionarily speaking, I will not trade this one just because it is a 1 day failed spiker. I like to see front side moves. If it ran, if this was a green bar that ran from $4 to 30 and then faded like this on the backside, hell yeah, I'd be watching it. But just the way that it got there, don't love it. Hims was weak in pre-market. How would you play this one? Do you start small and pre, add into open? Just your thoughts. Well, personally, Hims I didn't trade. So how I would trade it is I wouldn't. But I was looking for this to set up like SMMT. Very similar daily, where you get a big front side, big base for multiple weeks, multiple months, and then a parabolic or clear out of those prior highs and then sit back. And Hims just didn't quite get there today. It's still in a bigger picture uptrend, but we've got this multiple week, multiple month base, and now it's starting to curl. So I'd like to see it speed up $70 plus. And that would be a trade in it for me. But in terms of how I would trade it like today is I just wouldn't. It's not really like a daily setup. It's not a super clean multi-day extension. Volume isn't speeding up. Daily bars aren't getting bigger and bigger. So not really a trade that I would personally take. Do you start small in pre-market and add into open? If I come in with a bias and it's gapping the way I like, typically I do take a starter in pre versus the widest risk possible, and then scale post open once I get a new risk level and can keep dollar risk the same, but get more size versus a lower risk. And that lower risk isn't arbitrary. It's just a new level that is lower, and I can be proven wrong earlier. So that's kind of how I look at stuff like that. Like FSLR was basically, to answer your question, is basically what you're describing or what you're looking for, is I put it on here in pre-market and super small starter, but I'm looking for it to set a lower high, lower than the prior day's highs. And if it were to have topped in like 193s instead of 195s, now I've got $2 a share more of range that I can add and risk. Instead of just a pre-market starter, I can actually get full size regular market hours. So just look for new risk levels to set, and that's typically the only way I'll really add. You betcha, you betcha, you betcha. Alrighty-o, what do you guys say? Let's wrap it up there. I've got my 2 to 3 main watches going into tomorrow. Answered a couple good questions. And yeah, sounds like a plan. So thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate the chit chat. See some of you in IU tomorrow. And the rest of you, I'll see you on the next watch list. Trade them all, guys. Take it easy. Peace.